Okay, let's get right to it. This is the time of year that movie geeks all over the world inevitably turn to a few tried and true film titles to get them through the stress and chaos of the holiday season. We turn to our holiday favorites, of which there's about a handful. It's a Wonderful Life, A Christmas Story, White Christmas, Scrooged perhaps, but no matter what, no list of holiday film favorites could possibly be complete without National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, the third Griswold family odyssey starring Chevy Chase, Beverly D'Angelo, Randy Quaid, and a cast of truly beloved character actors. Written by John Hughes, this holiday classic is directed with tremendous warmth and energy by a remarkable filmmaker we are proud to welcome on the show tonight. Jeremiah Chechik has shown chameleon-like skills as a film director for nearly 20 years, producing work as varied as Benny and Joon, Tall Tale, Diabolique, and 7 episodes of this year's television event, The Bronx is Burning. It is our pleasure to welcome Jeremiah Chechik to our program. Mr. Chechik, are you with us?
I am with you, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being with us. We cannot tell you how excited we are to talk to you about this great movie.
Well, it's always funny to talk about a movie that when you made it, you had just no idea that it would be the way it is now.
Oh, you really didn't, huh?
Well, we didn't. All we knew is that we were thoroughly amused in making it. We laughed a lot when we were cutting it. And, we even were kind of pretty happy with the end result when we first screened it in the initial tests. But, and when it became a hit when it was initially released, we thought, well, that's it, it'll, nice for this season, well and gone. But it's just been kind of one of those oddly kind of memorable films, both for me and for everyone that I know.
Like we said at the top of the show, this movie has become tradition. I mean, you heard Chris; he wraps his presents to it every single year. I mean, it's absolutely a part of so many lives this time of year. But this was your first feature film.
Yeah, it was my first film, and it was an odd film for me to get as a first film. I was kind of surprised that I was actually even offered this film, since at that point in my career, I had been a fashion photographer, mainly for Italian Vogue, and I had come back to New York and was doing a lot of commercials, in the tradition of kind of, dark, sexy, moody, musical, that
right.
kind of thing. And I always thought, well, my first film is definitely going to be a noirish kind of thing. And oddly enough, I was asked to do a film on the Apollo Theater and started to develop this. This was at Amblin with Mr. Spielberg and Kathy Kennedy, and they had sort of taken me under wing. I had never made a movie before, but they were fans of my commercials, and they started to kind of embrace the kind of sensibility that I had, and they were making that movie, or were planning to make that movie with Warner Brothers. And I got to know the guys at Warner Brothers, and the Apollo film was... It became, for me, I wanted to make a small film on the Apollo, and Warner's wanted to make a huge star-driven movie on the Apollo, and we had a falling out about that movie, but Warner's wanted to give me a movie, and so they just sent me a whole bunch of scripts, most of which I thought were dreadful, and I had no idea that they were, they sent me one script, and they said, oh yeah, Clint Eastwood, he's going to do this movie. And I read the script, and I said,
there's no way.
There's no way Clint Eastwood is going to do this movie, and he did it. It was, I forget what it was now, but like a really, not Clint's kind of most memorable work.
Right.
Pink Cadillac, I think it was called.
Okay, so you got out of that one. That's good.
I said, there's no way Clint Eastwood's ever going to do a movie like Pink Cadillac. Anyway, they had sent me their slate. One of the things they had sent me that I really loved was John Hughes' script for Christmas Vacation, and John Hughes was, at that moment in time, he was a giant. He had been a real kind of provocative cultural icon at that time, and was kind of taking me under wing and going to basically produce the movie. What that did for me is give me a tremendous amount of power, even though I hadn't earned any of it for myself, but he gave me a lot of power, because then as soon as he said, he's my guy, you got to listen to him to the studio, he went off and started to make Uncle Buck.
Oh.
So he left me with all of this fantastic kind of personal power to deal with Christmas Vacation. And so whenever the studio wanted to make some changes, I'd just say, yeah, I'd love to. Just check in with John, make sure he's okay with it. And I'd immediately phone John. I'd say, they want to do this, and he'd say, I'm not taking their call. Right. So
that's great.
On we went, and the process of casting it was really, really fun, because I wasn't really. I have to tell you that I have never seen the first two Vacation movies, even to this day.
Oh, really?
Well, I never wanted to see them before I made my movie, because
right.
I never considered it to be, in fact, a sequel. It was never really written as a sequel. I don't know if you know this, but it was written initially by Hughes as an article for the Lampoon, a short story. And then he adapted it as a screenplay, and Warner's, brilliantly so, thought it would play as a great sequel to their franchise at the time. So he adapted it for that, but it was a standalone movie. I mean, it didn't really need.
Well, you can tell that today too. I mean, obviously the Griswold family were part of films before that, but this one really stands on its own.
Yeah, and I felt I didn't want to really be influenced by the previous films, for better and worse. I think they had kind of fallen on hard times anyway. Mm-hmm. And thought I would just do my own thing, and to that end, I had Chevy, who was attached, and Beverly, who was attached, and I had met with Chevy, and it was fine. I didn't really know that much about his work, since I wasn't really at that time even a fan of broad comedy as a director. I had no idea why they gave me this movie. I eventually asked them. I said, "Why did you ever give me this movie?" They said, "Because you shoot pretty pictures and you're funny." Okay, it's fine with me. I had already made the movie.
Well, you talked about John Hughes, and I just want to backtrack a minute. He was so influential in that period of time, and he's kind of a mysterious figure now. You don't see him very often, and I'm just wondering what that experience was like. You say that he was very encouraging, but what kind of collaborator is John Hughes? Well,
I mean, he is and was a very, very complex figure. Brilliant writer, very stylish and very fast. Just in terms of his facility with words and sensibilities and personalities and that kind of thing. He's very much active today, even though you wouldn't know it. He rewrites scripts, and I would imagine he's a highly paid kind of rewrite person. Right. But I don't think he really needs the kind of hassle of Hollywood, as it were. I mean, I think he really was his own guy and wanted to just make movies his own way.
Yeah.
His influence on me was, I thought I would learn quite a lot by just observing how he kind of approached his work. And I spent a few days watching him work when he was in production before I started. But he was just very, very laid back as a director. And I really learned more about comedy from watching the way he cast, and certainly from his writing. That was the thing. In other words, I really learned to squeeze every bit of comedy out of a line, and to that end, I would always try to beat every line like a dead horse until I just couldn't do it anymore. And I always figured if I laughed, somebody out there would laugh. That was always the way I kind of tailored my response as a director. Because remember, when you're doing a comedy, it's just you and the cast. And when you've rehearsed it and done it, and it may not feel that funny to a lot of people. Like grips standing around, kind of bored, leaning on the lights.
Yeah, it must be difficult after a while to gauge what's funny and what's not anymore. Yeah.
Well, I just figured if I laughed, I thought it was funny. End of story. That was it.
Right.
So that's how I played it. Though there were some scenes that are obviously They were really, really funny when we read them, funny when we were blocking them, super funny when we shot them, and when we cut them, they were really, really funny. And a lot of them had to do with Randy Quaid's cousin Eddie and Chevy's chemistry.
Yes.
Randy, who is just a brilliant, brilliant actor, both dramatically and comedically, was just a dream. I mean, the whole cast was great, and I worked hard at trying to pull really solid professionals into my family. I mean, like William Hickey, is a giant he's dead now, and he's a giant of the theater and of the education of actors in New York. He's very legendary. He played the uncle, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, of course.
He's hysterical in the movie, and I wanted to ask you about him because he's always been, and this is about 3-4 years after he really made a comeback with Prizzi's Honor. I mean, he's a powerful.
That's right, and
yeah.
I just wanted to work with him, and I kind of offered him the part, and he said yes. E.G. Marshall, another like giant actor, through the 40s and the classic era of Hollywood, and John Randolph, who was blacklisted. These are for me, they were legendary actors, and I just wanted them to surround me and really kind of embrace my sensibility, which they did. Johnny Galecki, who is awesome, in the body of work. These are serious people, as we've seen from their 20 years of work. Johnny came; he was a kid, but he auditioned, and he was just like absolutely great. Juliette Lewis, I think this was her first film, and she just came in and just struck me as kind of sultry and sullen and kind of sexy in a weird way. And
yes.
I just
I'm with you there.
Just completely, in a way, miscast to be part of the Griswold family, and so I cast her because I thought she would be kind of interesting, and and so the interesting kind of connection and chemistry between all these people really, really was part of the energy that fed me, because in the movie, which I haven't seen for a while, I'm the only one who doesn't watch it every Christmas. I feel like, oh, that's weird. It's like looking at your own picture or something. But I think there's a lot of scenes with a lot of people in it,
right? And
those kinds of dynamics are really, really fun to do. But overall, I try to focus a lot on, believe it or not, on the characters and the heart of it, because I felt no matter how funny it is, if it didn't have heart, it really wouldn't stand the test of time.
Yeah, it's got tremendous heart, and the thing about the character of Clark Griswold too is that he does have heart. I mean, he wants to do the very best he can to impress his family and give them an impressive time. But what was it like? You talk about these great actors together. Did they feel like a family after months of being together? I mean, were they? Yeah,
dysfunctional family. I mean, there was a lot of chaos on the set. There was a lot of strife initially between Beverly and I. And it's funny because I think maybe 2 years ago we did an anniversary DVD.
Yeah.
Of the film, and we all got together and we were narrating, and Beverly and I just got on like a house on fire. We were joking. She was going, I treated you so terribly. Oh, yes, you did, but I was back at you. She, I don't know at the time how she was feeling about doing this role, but she was quite nasty to me initially, and so we really were like sparks, her and I. I had given her some direction, and she really kind of put me down in front of the crew, saying like, I've never directed a film. What right did I have about to give her any direction? And
goodness.
So I basically said, oh, you want to play that way? That's fine. That's fine. I did the whole scene, and I covered everybody, and I got everybody's kind of 2 shots and close-ups and everything. And when it came to her close-up, I just looked at her and I went, moving on. And she basically freaked out and said, "You can't do that. You need my close-up." And I said, "I don't need anything from you. I'm going to cut you out of the movie." And so
oh, goodness.
Then she
see, and this is the kind of behavior that we hear about from Chevy Chase, or that I've heard previous directors say about him. But
well, what happened then, of course, was because Beverly was nasty to me. But then I got her in line. She was great, and then we got on. Then she would fall out, and all of that. By the way, I have to say that that's why I preface this. Now we get along great. So.
Oh yeah.
But at the time, it was kind of crazy, and it was my first film, so I just really had to. I'm very not intimidated by actors. So I'm really in their face. So what happened was, because she was mean, the entire cast kind of congealed around me and started to be mean to her, which didn't serve my purpose at all, because then Chevy was really nasty to her, and so they would be just basically almost spitting at each other 4 takes, and then boom, they were there. And this thing kind of went in and out of scenes, but they were so good, you'd never know. I mean, You'd never know watching it.
Isn't that amazing? And you hear that sometimes from film sets. I think the most famous one is probably Gone with the Wind. But when the two of them are together, I mean, it's just... No,
they're there because they really kind of sublimated to the character, and they leave it all behind when you say roll. And, to that end, that's really terrific. So, all's well that ended well, of course, at the end of it, when we all got to the end, everybody was like, "Yeah, we really love you, man," But, it was pretty challenging emotionally for me, but when I think back on the experience of doing it, I really, really have very, very fond memories of the direction of the movie and the kind of how I felt about getting to work every single day. I really loved it.
Yeah. Why do you think it survived like it has?
Well, I have a notion about it, and I think that notion really had to do with how. I mean, I don't want to blow my own horn here, but I just want to explain how I prepared for the movie, and maybe that had something to do.
Blow your own horn, come on.
Yeah, come on, it's your movie, it's your, come on.
Anyway, before I did it, I looked at a lot of Preston Sturges movies and a lot of Billy Wilder, a lot of Howard Hawks, and, I really tried to kind of embrace the classic approach to comedy, wherein the meat of the movie, funny or dramatic, if you weren't with the characters, the movie wouldn't basically last. Mm-hmm. And it's my problem with many movies now. There's some fantastic eye candy and very well staged movies, but at the end of the day, you walk away and you go, "What do you feel like, Indian or Chinese?" You're not really talking about the movie.
You're right. Yeah.
And so when something strikes you, you carry it with you. And I really wanted to try and instill this in what was quite a broad script. And so I worked really hard at those small moments with Chevy that were not funny, that I directed in a dramatic way, so that you felt that he felt very, very much pained by his lack of being someone or what he expected to be at that moment in his life for his family. This is something that is very, very relatable to a lot of people. You know what I mean? You have expectations in your life. You have a family. You think you can do this. You're going to get the bonus. You're going to support them. You're going to build a pool, whatever it is, whether it's a middle class or working class or even on an emotional level, that you can bring something. And so I really tried to bring the tragedy, but of course balance the fact that it's tonally in a comedy, and worked with my instincts on that. But I really paid attention to that in every single scene.
Yeah.
And I remember the first preview screening of it, and I was just terrified because I realized that we were previewing a film, and I'd cut it and mixed it, and it was all temp scored and whatnot. And John Hughes had flown in from Chicago, and all the heads of the studios were there. And for them, it's kind of a normal thing, but for me, it was my first movie, and I thought, oh my God, if this goes south, I will never direct again. Like, this is terrible. And I was just apoplectically nervous. And Terry Semel, who's running Warner Brothers at the time, who's great, a wonderful guy, up to recently now running Yahoo, but just a really smart guy and real gentleman. Anyway, he decided he was going to sit right next to me for fun, right? And so Terry and I sat and we watched the movie, played it, and it started out, there was the first few shots, and in the audience, everyone started laughing. There was no jokes. It was not supposed to be funny, but people started to laugh. And I went, wow, this is really interesting. And the movie picked up steam, and it started to play, and people were laughing in the right moments, and we're very, very focused on, if the audience laughs a long time and steps on a line in their laugh, we extend it out. You don't really get that feeling when you're not watching it in a crowded theater, like on DVD. Yeah. But when you're previewing a comedy, especially, you want the rhythm of the laughs not to overstep the next lines, and if the laugh is short, verse, whatever, you shorten it up. It just plays better. So you're really focused on that. Mm-hmm. So we knew that the movie was playing. It was really, really funny, but I still didn't know to the end, because very, very often, you have a comedy that plays very, very funny, and it sort of lands in a lame way. People walk away, and it sort of does okay, but it doesn't do great. It's whatever. But there came a scene, a very important scene to me, when he's out there and he's trying to plug the lights in, and he's like, just does this enormous kind of build up, and he slams the plugs together, and nothing happens. And so he does the scene, and the entire audience at one time groans. Oh, yeah. Oh. And I look at Terry, and Terry looks at me, and at that moment, I knew that I had a movie that was going to be a hit movie. Because they feel it. They're in it. Because people were with his journey. It wasn't about the laughs. It was they cared. Mm-hmm. And I love that. And it taught me a lot about how to invest that kind of thing. And in drama, I try to invest a lightness to the drama, the flip side, so that it's not all Sturm and Drang as it is. Well, I know that you also did Benny and Joon, and before you leave, I want to ask you a question about that. That's another exceptional movie, and you got to work with Johnny Depp. I mean, way back when. And tell me about that experience, and if you kind of knew that he would peak to the level he's at today by watching him then. Well, I'm still friends with him, and Johnny has never changed. He's the same guy. He is a true artist, and he recognizes material and artists, and he likes to work with his friends, and he is very giving. And we had a notion on this movie to try and do something tonally. I always really, I was a fan of his from the beginning. I never think about if somebody's going to be, big, small, or indifferent. I don't really. That's not part of my thinking. To be honest, I always thought that he would always make choices that, and I think he would probably say this, that would prevent that from happening. Yeah. Because he was early on, a little sex symbol on TV, and he hated it, and he didn't want to be objectified like that. And he's a very serious artist, and he really likes that kind of outside work and character. And so, his choices would be defined by the material and the kind of stuff that happens. It's amazing that, in a way, the culture catches up with Johnny, not him with the culture. And so I'm not surprised, because he's an enormous talent and very charismatic and a wonderful, deserving person. But I wouldn't have expected just naturally that the culture would have caught up with somebody as quirky as that. Though, I'm sure no one is as shocked as he is. Yeah, I think he's surprised too, but it's not because of the talent. It's because of his expectations and what he wants to do and what he's tried to do. But working with him was we worked obviously very, very closely on this, and it was a very very difficult movie to do tonally, although it was not a difficult movie to shoot because we were all quite enamored. The cast and the crew, we all had an amazing experience that was not unlike the movie you see. We were most surprised that movie really hit a chord, and in a way has lasted and become somewhat of a cult movie too. I'm kind of very proud of it.
It is. It's great. I mean, it's astonishing that you're part of. For anyone to be part of just one film like that is amazing. But
hell, I could die now, right?
No, you're not going to do that. I understand that you're shooting a television series now, or what's?
Yeah. Well, last year I actually did 8 episodes, all 8, and I produced 2 of The Bronx is Burning.
Oh, all 8 of them.
For some reason, IMDb says there were 7, but there are 8, and I did all. We shot it as an 8-hour movie and then cut it up into a series. And it was about the 1977 Yankees. And again, very quirky, very unusual, very strange, and very, very, very strong, dramatic, very dark.
And another outstanding cast, too.
Yeah, amazing cast, and they were unbelievably good. I mean, my thing is working with really, really good actors.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I've done. And, I shot a few pilots this year as well, and we're finishing a pilot right now that is one of the strangest. It's a television pilot, but it's extremely strange. It's a cross between a live action Thunderbirds, like the puppet Thunderbirds, or the Prisoner, or the early Avengers, like
really?
Very surrealistic
television.
Awesome.
I feel like they're taking more and more with their narrative shows. They're taking more and more risks with content on TV now.
Yeah, well, what's happening, one of the reasons you could never make a Benny and Joon now for a studio. You can never do that. They just don't want to make those kind of movies. So, with me, I like to change it up. I really like to never do the same movie twice and never do the same kind of thing. This year, after The Bronx is Burning, which was very heavy, dramatic, I did a broad half-hour comedy pilot, which has been picked up. And it's kind of like Get Smart with a band. It's very strange. and that'll be going into production as soon as the strike is over.
Oh, that's great.
And the one that I'm doing now is written by a writer, Javier Grillo-Marxuach, who was one of the writers on Lost, one of the main writers on Lost, and is based on his graphic novel comic book called The Middleman, and it's available on Amazon. And it's really, really a very odd, surreal thing. And these are the kinds of things that the film studios are very reticent to make, these kinds of things, unless you have a major star. And often the whole point is not to have a major star, to bring the absolute right actors to this.
Right.
And that's why it's often better to do it for a reduced budget for television. You get a huge audience, and it's a lot of fun.